When you think of BTS, you picture flawless choreography, record-breaking hits, and perfectly polished PR personas conquering the American market. But what happens when the cameras stop rolling? What are the raw, unfiltered, and deeply controversial habits these megastars hide in plain sight? Habits that completely fly under the radar of US fans. Are they truly the picture-perfect idols Western media portrays? Or do they secretly harbor rebellious streaks, intense cultural clashes, and jaw-dropping personal quirks that would send the Korean media into an absolute frenzy? Buckle up, because we are about to peel back the glamorous curtain to expose the raw truth. Are you ready to question everything you thought you knew about the biggest boy band in the world? Let's dive right into the top 7 controversial personal habits of BTS members that US fans rarely notice. Number 7. Jimin, the extreme skinship misunderstood. Have you ever watched a BTS interview on an American late-night show and noticed the subtle, almost microscopic shifts in the host's facial expression when Jimin casually drapes his entire body weight over another member? US audiences are deeply conditioned by a culture of rigid personal bubbles, hypermasculinity, and touch-starved male dynamics where two guys standing closer than 3 feet is immediately scrutinized, heavily analyzed, or slapped with a label. Then, you introduce South Korea's cultural concept of skinship, a completely normal, socially accepted, platonic physical intimacy among same-sex friends. But here's the jaw-dropping reality that causes absolute chaos in translation. Jimin takes this completely standard cultural norm and violently cranks the dial up to 1,000, resulting in an extreme, hyper-tactile habit that constantly confuses and divides Western audiences. We are not just talking about a friendly pat on the back. We are talking about a fully grown 20-something global superstar who will casually climb into the lap of his bandmate during a serious, internationally broadcasted interview. We are talking about relentless, spontaneous back hugs, resting his chin on shoulders for 10 minutes straight, interlocking fingers while walking, and literally wrapping his limbs around people like a human koala bear. To the untrained American eye, this astronomical level of physical clinginess is almost immediately shoved into one of 2 cynical boxes. It's either aggressively dismissed as blatant, heavily calculated fan service orchestrated by a greedy corporate agency to feed delusional internet shippers, or it's obsessively overanalyzed as some sort of secret romantic coding that the West desperately wants to uncover and expose. But what if both of those assumptions are completely laughably wrong? What if the raw, unvarnished truth that most people completely miss is that Jimin is simply a deeply affectionate, highly sensitive human being whose primary love language and emotional coping mechanism are rooted entirely in physical touch? Let's truly break this down and look behind the glamorous, diamond-studded curtain of the K-pop industry. In a bone-crushing, soul-draining reality where these idols are subjected to sleepless nights, terrifying global expectations, and a microscope that watches their every single breath, physical touch becomes an anchor. For Jimin, grabbing onto RM's arm during a chaotic red carpet or leaning his entire head on Suga's shoulder in the waiting room is not a calculated performance. It's a subconscious, desperate grounding technique. It's a way to feel safe, real, and protected in a world that's constantly spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour. Imagine the severe psychological toll of performing the Black Swan choreography in front of 80,000 screaming fans, feeling like an untouchable, majestic god on stage, and then returning to a dead silent, aggressively isolated hotel room. The emotional whiplash is deafening. For Jimin, engaging in this extreme, overwhelming skinship is his visceral way of staying tethered to reality and to the 6 brothers who are literally the only people on planet Earth who truly understand the bizarre, isolating life they're living. And yet, here's the funniest and most controversial part that rarely gets talked about. This habit is so intense that it frequently overwhelms even his own bandmates. If you look closely at unedited behind-the-scenes footage from Run BTS or In the Soup, you'll frequently witness hilarious, incredibly human moments where a highly stressed, overstimulated Suga will gently but firmly peel Jimin off his back like a piece of stubborn Velcro, or where Jin will loudly complain about Jimin being too hot, sweaty, and sticky
sticky in the summer heat to be clinging onto him like a wet blanket. RM often just sighs, his face a perfect picture of resigned acceptance as Jimin casually uses his thigh as a permanent pillow. It's incredibly endearing, but it highlights just how relentless Jimin's need for physical proximity really is. Western fans, steeped in a society that fears platonic male intimacy, watch this and their brains absolutely short-circuit. They flood social media with thousands of wild, conspiracy-level theories, completely missing the beautiful, innocent reality of a man who just genuinely loves his best friends and uses touch to physically manifest that love. Why is the Western world so absolutely terrified of male affection? Why is it so hard to accept that platonic love between men can be this physically profound, tender, and utterly unashamed without needing a romantic or cynical label attached to it? When Jimin reaches out to absent-mindedly massage Jungkook's neck during a terrifying high-stakes press conference in America, he isn't trying to create a viral Twitter moment for the timeline. He's seeking the familiar, comforting warmth of his chosen family in a cold, intimidating environment. The real controversy here doesn't actually lie in Jimin's clingy behavior at all. The controversy lies in how aggressively the Western gaze misinterprets it, constantly weaponizing his genuine, bleeding heart vulnerability for the sake of internet engagement and toxic shipping wars. This extreme skinship is, in its own quiet way, a massive rebellion against the cold, detached, untouchable professionalism expected of Western global superstars. It's a raw, beating heart worn proudly and unapologetically on his sleeve, demanding that we look inward and rethink our own rigid boundaries, our fears of intimacy, and our preconceived notions about what masculinity and true brotherhood actually look like. So, the next time you see Jimin draping his entire body over a bandmate, burying his face in their neck while laughing, ask yourself this challenging question. Are you looking at a calculated, well-trained idol performing a cheap trick for the cameras? Or are you privileged enough to be witnessing a deeply human, incredibly vulnerable moment of a man just trying to find a little bit of warmth in a notoriously cold and unforgiving industry?
Number 6. Jin, the unapologetic boss roaster. Corporate rebellion. Have you ever imagined what it would actually feel like to walk right up to the terrifying executives of a multi-billion-dollar global entertainment empire, look them dead in the eye, and publicly roast their highly calculated business decisions in front of millions of screaming people? In the Western entertainment industry, we occasionally see massive pop stars going to war with their record labels, but in the fiercely traditional, hyper-structured corporate world of South Korea, doing this is not just frowned upon, it is essentially considered professional and social suicide. South Korea operates on a deeply ingrained, unbreakable system of age, seniority, and absolute, unquestioning respect for authority, especially in the cutthroat, manufactured K-pop industry, where agencies historically hold godlike, dictatorial control over every single aspect of their idols' lives. Enter Kim Sok-jin. As the oldest member of BTS, widely known across the globe by his self-appointed iconic title of Worldwide Handsome, U.S. audiences often perceive Jin as the elegant, classically polite, soft-spoken visual of the record-breaking group. But beneath that impossibly perfect, prince-like exterior lies a man who treats the ironclad rules of HYBE Corporation like absolute mere suggestions, and it is a spectacle of epic, revolutionary proportions. While American fans might chuckle at his legendary dad jokes, his chaotic cooking shows, and his famous flying kisses on stadium stages, they completely miss the heavy gravity of his ongoing, incredibly public war against his own management. What if I told you that Jin has essentially made it an extreme sport to publicly humiliate, relentlessly criticize, and completely dismantle his bosses whenever he feels like it, treating the rigid corporate hierarchy like a playground for his own amusement? Let's rewind the tapes and look at the undeniable, jaw-dropping facts. In the heavily curated world of K-pop, idols are meticulously trained to passionately sell whatever merchandise their company produces, smiling through the aggressive capitalism with overwhelming scripted enthusiasm. But when HYBE Corporation released an exclusive line of pajamas designed by Jin himself, the Good Day and Bad Day sets, and slapped a staggeringly exorbitant price tag on them to milk the dedicated fan base, what did Jin do? Did he play the loyal, obedient corporate soldier and promote the cash grab?
Absolutely not. He immediately took to the global fan platform Weverse, entirely bypassing the terrified PR department, and publicly expressed his absolute shock and disgust at the ridiculous price, bluntly telling the fans and the company that even he wouldn't buy them. He essentially told millions of loyal consumers to reconsider giving his own company their hard-earned money. Can you even fathom the sheer, unadulterated panic echoing through the HYBE executive boardroom when their biggest artist actively sabotaged their profit margins because his strict moral compass deemed it fundamentally unfair to the fans? This was not a one-time accidental slip-up. This is a chronic, highly calculated habit that he has perfected over a decade. From casually going live on broadcasts to loudly complain about the company overworking the members and ruining their personal gaming schedules, to openly bickering with camera directors and senior staff during official reality shows, Jin absolutely refuses to act like a traditional, deferential subordinate. He has roasted the billionaire founder Bang Si-hyuk right to his face, treated company directives as annoying background noise, and constantly shattered the pristine illusion of the obedient idol. But why does he do it? Is he just arrogant, or is there a hidden, deeply emotional layer to this rebellion? This is where the reflective, strategic genius of Kim Sok-jin truly shines, and it is a beautiful masterclass in using your own privilege for protection. You see, in Korean culture, as the eldest brother, or mat-hyung, Jin holds a specific, powerful tier of unquestionable respect. He intimately knows that his younger bandmates, especially in their early, highly vulnerable rookie years when they were desperate and broke, could never dare to speak up against the terrifying executives without facing severe cultural and professional backlash. So, Jin brilliantly and selflessly weaponized his age, his unbreakable confidence, and his innate stubbornness to become the designated corporate shield for all of BTS. When he complains loudly about the schedule being too grueling on a live stream, he isn't just whining, he is fighting a public battle for the rest of the members to get a desperately needed break. When he roasts the staff for being unreasonable with their demands, he is deliberately drawing the company's fire away from the younger ones, absorbing the friction himself. He willingly plays the role of the loud, demanding, slightly unhinged rebel so the others don't have to bear the heavy burden of defying management. US fans, entirely unfamiliar with the strict nuances of Korean hierarchical dynamics, often just see these moments as funny, chaotic memes to share on Twitter and TikTok. They completely miss the profound courage, the immense risk, and the fiercely protective love it takes to constantly put your own neck on the line against a multi-billion-dollar, highly influential corporate machine. Jin's relentless habit of roasting his bosses isn't just comedic relief, it is a vital, radical act of defiance that fundamentally changed the power dynamics between BTS and their agency forever. It forces us to ask a terrifyingly real, uncomfortable question. In a multi-billion-dollar industry entirely built on the absolute obedience and mass manufacturing of young human beings, what happens when the product suddenly turns around, looks the CEO in the eye, and realizes it holds absolutely all the power? Does the machine break, or does it bow? Jin proves time and time again that he is not just a handsome face singing pretty melodies on a stage. He is a sharp, strategic, fearless protector who refuses to let the corporate machine chew him or his beloved brothers up. So the next time you see Jin casually rolling his eyes at a strict company rule, boldly demanding better treatment on a live broadcast, or telling fans to keep their money in their wallets, will you just laugh it off as another funny internet moment, or will you finally recognize the absolute titan of defiance standing before you, systematically dismantling the oppressive idol industry one savage, unapologetic roast at a time?
Number 5. RM. The industry machine exposed, a philosophical rebellion. Imagine standing at the absolute pinnacle of global music, a towering intellectual titan representing not just a band, but an entire nation's unprecedented cultural dominance, only to look down from the glittering summit and declare that the mountain you climbed is structurally corrupt, soul-crushing, and slowly breaking everyone standing on it. The K-pop factory is a terrifyingly efficient multi-billion-dollar monolithic machine. It historically takes young, starry-eyed teenagers and runs them through a brutal, militaristic training camp, systematically stripping away their messy individuality to forge perfectly synchronized, perpetually smiling, scandal-free products specifically designed for mass global consumption and endless profit. The absolute golden unwritten rule of this shiny, meticulously engineered universe is remarkably simple. You never, ever bite the hand that feeds you, and you certainly never pull back the heavy velvet curtain to reveal the blood, sweat, and intense psychological tears keeping the corporate gears turning. But Kim Namjoon, known to the world as RM, the profound, cerebral, and famously diplomatic leader of BTS, harbors a deeply controversial habit that sends icy shivers down the spines of corporate executives. He absolutely refuses to uphold the lie. U.S. audiences entirely accustomed to Western pop stars casually taking mental health sabbaticals, ranting on Twitter, or openly feuding with their record labels often completely fail to grasp the seismic, earth-shattering magnitude of RM publicly critiquing the Korean idol system. They might just see a tired musician venting his frustrations, completely missing the tectonic cultural shift of a Korean idol publicly condemning the very systemic foundations of the nation's most lucrative cultural export. To truly understand the terrifying gravity of this rebellion, we have to look at the suffocating, inescapable reality of a standard K-pop comeback schedule. It is a claustrophobic, mind-numbing cycle of waking up at 2 in the morning for hair and makeup, pre-recording music shows at dawn, sprinting through variety show appearances, conducting exhausting fan signs, and then returning to the practice room to perfect grueling choreography until midnight, only to sleep for 2 hours in a van and do it all over again for weeks on end. In this relentless, unforgiving blender of content creation, there is absolutely zero room for personal evolution or human error. This is the exact same man who stood before the United Nations General Assembly, elegantly delivering speeches of hope, self-love, and global unity in flawless English, projecting the ultimate image of poised, untouchable K-pop diplomacy. Yet in the quiet, desperate shadows of his own mind, he was suffocating under the colossal weight of that exact same polished persona. During the now infamous and highly emotional 2022 Festa dinner broadcast, RM did the unthinkable. With tears streaming down his face and the heavy, invisible crown of leadership visibly weighing on his exhausted shoulders, he looked directly into the camera and shattered the illusion of effortless perfection into a million unfixable pieces. He bluntly, agonizingly confessed that the K-pop factory model doesn't give you time to mature as a human. He exposed the terrifying existential dread of waking up one day and realizing he didn't know who he was anymore, feeling like a mindless machine endlessly churning out catchy lyrics and high-energy performances while his actual soul was starving in the dark. He spoke of the guilt, the paralyzing, agonizing guilt of needing to stop and breathe, while the entire world, the ravenous fans, and the hyper-capitalist company demanded that BTS keep running at breakneck speed. The fallout from this single habit of brutal honesty was instantaneous and catastrophic for the corporate machine. Hybe's stock plummeted immediately, wiping out over $1 billion in market value in a single day, simply because the leader of their golden goose dared to admit he was human and that the system was fundamentally flawed. Korean media erupted, and executives scrambled in sheer panic, terrified that his raw, unfiltered vulnerability would shatter the profitable, flawless fantasy they had spent decades meticulously engineering to perfection. Executives in the Korean entertainment sector thrive entirely on the illusion of the happy idol, a compliant, infinitely energetic figure who exists solely to serve the fans and generate revenue, masking the grueling diets, the sleep deprivation, and the intense psychological monitoring. But Namjoon is a poet and a philosopher trapped in a hyper-capitalist machine. His brilliant mind craves quiet contemplation, nature, literature, art museums, and the slow, messy process of genuine human experience, which are in direct, violent opposition to an industry that demands instant gratification and perfectly synchronized viral challenges.
His habit of dropping these brutal reality checks, whether wrapped in subtle lyricism in his solo albums like Indigo and Right Place, Wrong Person, hidden in long introspective Weavers posts, or spoken through raw, unedited live streams, serves as a constant glaring warning light on the dashboard of the Hallyu wave. Why is the industry so absolutely terrified of a man who simply wants the time to figure out who he is outside of the blinding spotlight? Why do we, as global consumers, feel so entitled to demand the perpetual, exhausting labor of young artists until they are hollowed out, empty shells of the people we claim to love and support? RM's profound willingness to critique the very machine that built his global empire is an unprecedented act of intellectual bravery that permanently alters the idol company dynamic. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask a deeply uncomfortable, haunting question. Are we complicit in a culture that rewards the slow, psychological destruction of human beings just so we can have a catchy new song to stream on our morning commute? When the ultimate perfect product suddenly gains sentience, looks the factory owner dead in the eye, and demands the basic human right to grow, evolve, and feel, does the assembly line finally stop, or does it just try harder to silence the anomaly? RM has made his definitive choice, actively sacrificing his own peace of mind to pave a healthier, more humane path for the next generation of idols. And in doing so, he proves that true leadership isn't about maintaining a pristine, unbothered image, but about having the overwhelming courage to speak the ugly, uncomfortable truth when everyone else is too afraid to make a sound.
Number 4. J-Hope, the terrifying dance leader, Sunshine's dark side. When you ask any casual fan in the United States to describe Jungkook, universally known as J-Hope, the answers are almost always exactly the same. He is the human embodiment of sunshine, a boundless ball of radiant energy, the endlessly smiling mood maker who lights up American late-night television screens with his infectious laughter and perfectly manicured street-style swagger. Western audiences are immediately introduced to a man who literally introduces himself with the iconic, heart-melting catchphrase, "I'm your hope, you're my hope, I'm J-Hope." He seems like the ultimate best friend, the guy who would laugh at all your jokes and make sure everyone at the party is having the absolute best time of their lives. But what happens when the flashing press cameras are turned off, the cheering stadium crowds disappear, and the heavy, soundproof doors of the underground Hybe dance practice room aggressively click shut? The blinding sunshine instantly evaporates, the warm smile flatlines into a chilling, dead-eyed stare, and the bubbly mood maker undergoes a terrifying psychological metamorphosis into a brutally strict, uncompromising, and absolutely ruthless disciplinarian. Welcome to the jarring, deeply controversial reality of the Hobie glare, a phenomenon so intensely intimidating that it completely shatters the carefully curated Western perception of who J-Hope actually is. To truly understand this jarring dichotomy, you have to look past the glitz and glamour of the global pop industry and examine the blood-stained, sweat-socked foundation of BTS's unprecedented global dominance, their flawless, superhuman choreography. In the impossibly high-stakes world of K-pop, where a single slightly out-of-sync footstep during a live broadcast can trigger a massive avalanche of harsh media criticism and online mockery, absolute physical perfection is not just a goal, it is a brutal, non-negotiable requirement for survival. And Jungkook, as the officially appointed dance leader of BTS, voluntarily carries the agonizing, back-breaking weight of that perfection squarely on his own shoulders. While RM leads the group intellectually and musically, J-Hope commands their physical existence with an iron, unforgiving fist. We are not just talking about casually reminding someone to stay on beat. We are talking about a microscopic, borderline obsessive level of scrutiny where he monitors the exact angle of a wrist, the precise millimeter of a knee bend, and the synchronized breathing of 7 exhausted men trying to execute death-defying acrobatics after running on 0 sleep.
When a mistake happens in that practice room, when a foot drags a fraction of a second too late, or a formation is off by half an inch, the thumping bass of the music violently cuts out, and the room goes dead silent. The temperature drops, and then comes the stare. It is a look so sharp, cold, and profoundly disappointed that it could freeze boiling water. Unedited behind-the-scenes documentary footage frequently captures these deeply uncomfortable, incredibly raw moments where the room's energy completely shifts and you witness fully grown, wealthy, globally famous men physically shrinking under J-Hope's intense scrutiny. The most fascinating and almost comical part of this dynamic is how it completely obliterates the strict, traditional Korean age hierarchy that we just talked about. In any other setting, Jin and Suga, as the older brothers, would command unquestionable authority. But the second they step onto the Marley floor of that dance studio, they are genuinely, openly terrified of their younger brother. Jin has gone on record nervously admitting that making eye contact with J-Hope after messing up a dance step is one of his greatest fears in life, and even the normally unflappable stoic Suga will instantly snap to attention and anxiously fix his posture when J-Hope starts aggressively pacing the room. Western audiences who are so used to the manufactured, overly friendly behind-the-scenes content of American pop groups are often wildly thrown off by these intense flashes of unfiltered aggression and strict hierarchy. They struggle to reconcile the smiling boy on the red carpet with the ruthless drill sergeant barking orders in the studio. But here is the profound emotional reflection that makes this controversial habit so incredibly beautiful. J-Hope's terrifying strictness is not born out of arrogance, a power trip, or a desire to humiliate his brothers. It is born out of a desperate, overwhelming, and fiercely protective love. He knows exactly how cruel and unforgiving the global entertainment industry is. He knows that the media is always waiting like starving wolves for BTS to slip up, to prove that they don't deserve their historic success. By pushing his members to the absolute brink of human endurance behind closed doors, by being the bad guy when their muscles are screaming in agony and they want to give up, he is ensuring that they are invincible when they step out onto that stadium stage in front of 80,000 people. He takes on the exhausting, emotionally draining burden of being the villain in the practice room so that all 7 of them can be untouchable gods in the spotlight. It's a massive, silent sacrifice of his own emotional comfort to protect the legacy of the team, a heavy cross he bears completely out of sight from the millions of fans who only know him for his smile. So the next time you watch a mesmerizing, perfectly synchronized BTS dance break that leaves you breathless and stunned, I want you to look closely at J-Hope, look past the glittering stage outfits and the dazzling smile, and ask yourself a challenging question. Are you merely watching a talented pop star dancing to a catchy beat, or are you witnessing the flawless, diamond-hard result of a fiercely protective general who dragged his brothers through hell and back just to make sure the world could never, ever tear them down?
Number 3. Suga, the airport sprinter, rejecting the runway. Have you ever stopped to consider the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of treating an international transit hub, a place of high security, stress, and frantic movement, like a glamorous, high-fashion runway? In the intensely manufactured, hyper-capitalist world of the K-pop industry, airport fashion is not just a casual stylistic choice, it is a meticulously orchestrated, highly lucrative, and aggressively monitored press event. Idols are explicitly contracted by luxury fashion houses to turn the departure terminal of Incheon International Airport into a literal catwalk. They are trained to arrive in pristine, unwrinkled designer outfits, walk at a painfully slow, deliberate pace, offer polite bows, and smile brightly for the blinding explosion of thousands of camera flashes from reporters and terrifyingly obsessive fans. It is a multi-million-dollar machine built entirely on the illusion of effortless, accessible perfection. But then, crashing violently into this pristine expectation, we have Min Yoongi, universally known as Suga or ASGD, a man who harbors a chronic, highly controversial habit that completely infuriates the Korean media establishment. He utterly and unapologetically refuses to play the airport game. US fans, who are entirely accustomed to Western celebrities looking genuinely miserable, unwashed, and exhausted at LAX, usually just chuckle at photos of Suga looking like a grumpy, sleep-deprived rock star. They completely miss the intense cultural friction and the severe professional backlash that his behavior triggers in South Korea. When Suga arrives at an airport, he does not perform. He does not smile for the cameras. He does not strut. Instead, he frequently transforms into a literal, fast-moving shadow. He arrives drowning in oversized, shapeless black clothing, a bucket hat aggressively pulled down so low it practically touches the bridge of his nose, and a face mask pulled up so high that not a single millimeter of his skin is visible. And then he sprints. He puts his head down and practically bolts through the terminal with the urgent, singular focus of a man trying to escape a burning building, entirely ignoring the desperate shouts of reporters begging him to look up. To the rigid, deeply entitled Korean media outlets, this refusal to perform is often framed as a massive insult. They have periodically published scathing articles, subtly or overtly criticizing this habit as arrogant, cold, or a symptom of the dreaded celebrity disease, accusing him of forgetting his roots and disrespecting the press that helped build his empire. But what if the media's furious narrative is a complete manipulative lie? What if Suga's lightning-fast, covered-up sprints have absolutely nothing to do with arrogance and everything to do with a profound, almost heartbreaking level of empathy and self-preservation? Let's rip away the glamorous filter and look at the terrifying, suffocating reality of an BTS airport arrival. We are talking about thousands of screaming, surging bodies, a terrifying crush of human beings that routinely tramples over innocent bystanders, breaks security barricades, and creates a highly volatile, genuinely dangerous environment for everyone involved. By refusing to walk slowly, by refusing to give the cameras a good shot, Suga is actively, strategically neutralizing the spectacle. He has explicitly explained in past broadcasts that he moves quickly to prevent dangerous mobbing, deeply aware that if he stops to pose, the crowd will violently surge forward, putting young fans, his overworked security team, and most importantly, completely innocent, terrified regular travelers in imminent physical danger. He fundamentally views the airport exactly as it was intended to be, a public transportation facility, not a private theater for corporate gain. Can you imagine the staggering level of grounded humility it takes to be one of the most famous musicians on planet Earth, draped in millions of dollars of endorsement deals, and still possess the hyper-awareness to prioritize the safety of a random grandmother trying to catch her flight over a viral fashion moment? His habit of entirely rejecting the airport fashion circus is a radical, silent protest against the dehumanizing entitlement of celebrity culture. It forces us to confront a highly uncomfortable, deeply challenging question. Why do we, as a society, feel so terrifyingly entitled to demand a flawless, smiling performance from a human being during their most exhausting, vulnerable moments of travel? Are we so addicted to the endless consumption of celebrity content that we view basic, fundamental human boundary setting as an arrogant crime? When Suga pulls that bucket hat down and disappears into the terminal, he isn't just shielding his eyes from the camera flashes. He is fiercely protecting his own humanity, completely refusing to let a toxic, entitled system commodify the simple act of walking to an airplane. He is demanding the one luxury that money and global fame cannot seem to buy in the K-pop industry, the right to just exist as a normal person.
So, the next time you see a blurry, high-speed photograph of Min Yoongi looking like a runaway shadow at Incheon Airport, will you blindly accept the media's bitter narrative that he is being a cold, ungrateful star, or will you finally recognize the quiet, fiercely protective genius of a man who is desperately trying to keep everyone safe in a world that constantly demands they bleed for our entertainment?
Number 2. BTS V. The reality check, shattering the delusion. Have you ever stopped to carefully consider the absolute terrifying psychological weight of having tens of millions of people completely, obsessively, and delusionally in love with you? In the hyper-calculated billion-dollar machinery of the global pop industry, both in the West and especially in South Korea, the concept of the parasocial relationship is not just a casual byproduct of fame, it is the fundamental, heavily weaponized core of the entire business model. Record labels and entertainment agencies spend staggering fortunes meticulously training their idols to maintain an impenetrable illusion of romantic availability. They are explicitly taught to humor the wildest fantasies of their fans, to smile brightly when asked highly inappropriate questions, and to constantly feed the terrifying, bottomless beast of fan entitlement, because at the end of the day, that delusional obsession translates directly into record-breaking album sales, sold-out stadium tours, and unimaginable corporate wealth. The unwritten golden rule of pop superstardom is violently simple and universally enforced. You never, ever break the fantasy. Enter Kim Taehyung, globally known as V of BTS. With his breathtaking, ethereal visuals, deep, honey-soaked baritone voice, and a stage presence so magnetic it practically bends reality, you would naturally think he's the ultimate compliant poster boy for this manufactured romantic illusion. But hiding just beneath that impossibly beautiful good boy exterior is a man who harbors a deeply controversial, consistently shocking habit that leaves PR executives sweating in sheer panic and completely short-circuits the brains of Western audiences. He aggressively, bluntly, and entirely refuses to humor your delusions. What if the man you thought was playing the role of your perfect imaginary internet boyfriend is actually the very person who will look you dead in the eye and brutally shatter your fantasy into a million jagged pieces? Let's dive deep into the fascinating, wildly controversial reality of these legendary interactions on the global fan platform Weverse. While most celebrities use these apps to post sanitized, heavily vetted PR messages or to offer vague, sweet nothings to keep the fan base blindly engaged, Taehyung uses it as a personal platform for radical, unapologetic reality checks. When fans, completely drunk on the manufactured intimacy of the idol industry, cross the line and post overly romantic obsessive comments, boldly claim that they are secretly married to him, or push wildly inappropriate narratives about his personal life, V does not just scroll past in silence. He does not offer a polite fake smile to keep the peace. Instead, he drops a nuclear bomb of blunt, freezing cold truth. He has famously and publicly responded to fans trapped in these obsessive fantasies with utterly savage, unforgettable wake-up calls. When a fan posted about a delusional romantic scenario involving him, he famously fired back with, "Get out of your imagination, it's not good in there." When another fan aggressively pushed a false narrative, he bluntly told them to snap out of it and wake up from your dream. He has openly called out toxic behavior, shut down invasive shipping fantasies between members by calling the delusions exactly what they are, and aggressively protected his own psychological boundaries with the lethal, unwavering precision of a sniper. For Western audiences who are deeply conditioned to expect their pop stars to endlessly coddle them, stroke their egos, and express undying gratitude for every single ounce of attention, this behavior is incredibly jarring. To the untrained eye, or to the highly entitled consumer, this habit can easily be misinterpreted as rude, ungrateful, or arrogant. But is it actually arrogant, or is it one of the most profoundly healthy, desperately necessary acts of self-preservation in the history of the modern entertainment industry? Let's peel back the glittering layers and look at the terrifying, pitch-black underbelly of K-pop obsession.
We are talking about the horrifying reality of sasaengs, obsessive, borderline psychopathic stalker fans who hack flight information, break into hotel rooms, and genuinely believe that because they bought an album or streamed a music video, they literally owned the human being who sang on it. By brutally shutting down these parasocial fantasies the exact second they appear on his screen, V is not being cruel. He is actively refusing to feed the exact psychological delusion that eventually morphs into dangerous, life-threatening stalking. He is demanding something that is practically unheard of in the tightly controlled idol industry: a normal, healthy, reality-based relationship between an artist and their audience. He is telling millions of people, I am a musician, I am a human being, and I love you as a fan, but I am not your boyfriend, I am not your husband, and your fantasy is absolutely not my reality. Can you even begin to comprehend the staggering, titanic courage it takes to look at the exact people who fund your billion-dollar lifestyle, the people who hold the power to cancel you at a heartbeat, and tell them a firm, unyielding no? In a world that constantly demands him to sell his soul and his personal boundaries for a higher chart position and a larger paycheck, V's refusal to play the romantic puppet is a breathtaking act of radical rebellion. It forces every single person looking at a screen to ask a deeply uncomfortable, mirror-shattering question. Why are we so desperate to consume the manufactured illusions of celebrities that we become genuinely enraged when they demand to be treated like real, bounded human beings? Are we actually fans of the artist's craft, or are we just selfishly addicted to the false, comforting fantasy they provide? When Taehyung tells a fan to wake up from their dream, he is not just policing a comment section for fun. He is fighting a massive, solitary war against the fundamental dehumanization of fame. He is proving that true love and respect for a global fan base does not mean endlessly feeding their toxic delusions. It means having the profound, unyielding integrity to tell them the painful truth, even when it stings, and demanding that they step out of the fake digital fantasy and into the real, grounded world with him. So the next time you see V shutting down an overzealous fan with a single, brutal, uncompromising sentence, will you join the bitter chorus of entitled consumers calling him cold, or will you finally stand in awe of a man who absolutely refuses to be owned by the very industry that created him?
Number 1. Jungkook, The Ink Rebellion, Shattering the Canvas. Have you ever stopped to truly consider what it actually means to own your own body when the entire world genuinely believes they have a vested financial stake in your flesh? In the grand, hyper-sanitized, and fiercely controlled arena of K-pop, an idol's physical appearance is not their own. It is a meticulously managed, fiercely protected corporate asset worth billions of dollars. They are manufactured from a very young age to be pristine, untouched canvases, the absolute, flawless epitome of the innocent, flower boy aesthetic, projecting a youthful, unblemished, and endlessly compliant perfection that can be easily packaged and marketed to the global masses. Now, I want you to imagine taking that multi-billion-dollar corporate canvas and deliberately, permanently, and painfully marking it with heavy, dark, unapologetic ink. In the Western music industry, heavily tattooed pop stars are just the standard, expected baseline. We barely even blink an eye when artists like Justin Bieber, Harry Styles, or Post Malone debut a massive new neck or face tattoo. It is simply part of the edgy, rock star uniform, an expected rite of passage in the American entertainment machine. But in the deeply conservative, traditional, and rigidly hierarchical landscape of South Korea, tattoos carry a monumentally different, far more sinister, and heavily stigmatized weight. Historically and culturally, tattoos in South Korea have been fiercely condemned, inextricably linked in the public consciousness to organized crime, violent gang syndicates, and juvenile delinquency.
The legal framework of the country itself is actively hostile against body art. Technically, it is completely illegal to administer a tattoo in South Korea unless you're a fully licensed medical doctor. A draconian and highly controversial law that forces incredibly talented, world-renowned Korean tattoo artists to operate in the clandestine, underground shadows, constantly fearing police raids and massive fines. Because of this intense, overarching societal taboo, major national broadcasting networks routinely and aggressively censor body art on television, forcing artists to wear suffocating long sleeves in the dead of the blistering summer heat, or actively applying ridiculous, highly distracting digital blurs and flesh-colored medical tape over their skin just to appease the conservative broadcasting standards. Enter Jungkook, the universally beloved golden maknae and the fiercely protected youngest member of BTS, who decided to look at these archaic, rigid societal rules, look at the crushing expectations of the pristine idol image, and absolutely set them on fire. The cultural earthquake began quietly and subtly during an extended group vacation in 2019 with a few small, seemingly innocuous letters spelling out Army across his knuckles, but it absolutely did not stop there. What started as a tiny, highly debated ripple rapidly exploded into a massive, highly visible, and deeply controversial rebellion that sent the Korean media, corporate executives, and the more conservative factions of the global fan base into an absolute, hyperventilating meltdown. Jungkook began methodically and unapologetically expanding that ink into a heavy, dark, intensely intricate full-arm sleeve, stretching entirely from his right shoulder all the way down to his fingertips. And he didn't just stop at the ink. He boldly pushed the cultural boundaries even further by getting highly visible facial piercings, an eyebrow ring that sent the internet into a frenzy, a bold lip ring, proudly flaunting a grungy, edgy alternative aesthetic that violently clashed with the pristine, innocent boy-next-door image he originally debuted with when he was just 15 years old. Can you even begin to comprehend the staggering, earth-shattering magnitude of the biggest, most heavily scrutinized pop star in Asia, the literal pride of his entire nation, actively choosing to visibly and permanently alter his body in a way his own society actively condemns and criminalizes? It was a massive, visceral shock to the cultural system. The censorship from the media was immediate, frantic, and utterly absurd. For years, we watched in absolute disbelief as national television programs frantically tried to hide his arm, wrapping him in heavy bandages like a medical patient in critical condition, or actively applying ridiculous, highly distracting digital blurs and flesh-colored medical tape over his skin just to appease the conservative broadcasting standards. But here is the most profound, deeply emotional, and wildly inspiring layer to this visual revolution that US fans rarely grasp the full gravity of. Jungkook simply did not care, and he absolutely refused to hide in the shadows. He boldly started wearing short-sleeved shirts to intense dance practices, proudly displaying his beautiful, intricate artwork in high-definition music videos, and openly, casually talking about the deeply personal, intimate meanings behind the ink on live broadcasts. His tattoos are not just random, edgy doodles thrown together for shock value. They are a breathtaking, permanent tapestry of his extraordinary life, his deepest passions, and his unwavering dedication to his craft. He bears the microphone to symbolize his eternal love for music, his beautiful birth flower, a massive clock showing the exact, precise minute of his birth, and the powerful philosophical words, "Make hay while the sun shines," etched permanently into his skin. By marking his body in such a heavy, undeniable way, Jungkook is aggressively and beautifully reclaiming his own physical autonomy. He is looking dead into the eyes of a highly controlling, deeply judgmental industry and a conservative society, and boldly declaring, "My body belongs solely to me, not to the company, not to the terrified media executives, and not to the fans who want me to stay a child forever."
He is single-handedly dismantling the suffocating, toxic expectation that an idol must remain perfectly unchanged, pure and frozen in time to be worthy of love and success. He is forcing an entire conservative nation to look at a heavily tattooed, pierced young man and finally recognize that body modifications do not make you a delinquent. They simply make you an artist, bravely expressing your own unvarnished truth. Why is it so profoundly terrifying for a society to let a young man grow up and choose exactly how he decorates his own skin? Are we so deeply, toxically addicted to the illusion of the innocent, untouched, manufactured idol that we are actually willing to digitally censor their actual literal flesh just to maintain a comfortable fantasy? Jungkook's unapologetic and escalating body modification is far more than just a passing stylistic choice or a rebellious phase. It is a monumental visual revolution that shattered the paradigm of what a Korean idol is allowed to be. It is the ultimate, profoundly controversial habit of a man who realized that the only way to survive the crushing, dehumanizing pressure of unimaginable global fame was to radically, permanently, and visibly become his true, authentic self, no matter how desperately the world tried to blur him out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of our wild, eye-opening, and deeply reflective journey into the unseen shadows of the world's biggest phenomenon. Through the overwhelming, extreme skinship of Jimin, who demands platonic intimacy, the savage corporate roasts of Jin, who acts as a fearless shield, the profound industry critiques of RM, who fights for the human soul, the terrifying, ruthless strictness of Hope, who sacrifices his own smile for perfection, the blazing airport sprinting of Suga, who violently rejects the celebrity circus, the brutal reality checks of V, who shatters dangerous parasocial delusions, and the bold, unapologetic ink rebellion of Jungkook, who reclaimed his own flesh. We have completely peeled back the sanitized, PR-approved curtain to reveal the raw, beating heart of BTS. We have uncovered 7 fiercely independent, incredibly brave human beings who flat out refuse to be boxed in by the suffocating, manufactured expectations of their multi-billion-dollar industry. They are not just polished, perfectly engineered pop stars designed for easy consumption. They are complex, flawed, deeply emotional rebels who are actively, constantly rewriting the fundamental rules of global fame with every single controversial habit they possess. So, as we wrap up this intense deep dive, I leave you with one final lingering question to echo in your mind. The next time you look at BTS shining on a massive stadium stage, will you just passively consume the glittering, flawless illusion the media desperately wants you to see? Or will you finally look closer and recognize the quiet, relentless, and beautiful revolutionary fire burning fiercely just beneath the surface? Thank you for diving headfirst into this deep, unfiltered truth with us. Keep questioning the polished narratives you are sold, and never, ever stop looking behind the glamorous curtain.
And there you have it, the absolute peak of controversial, heavily guarded secrets and raw personal habits that completely shatter the glittering, heavily manufactured illusion of the world's most untouchable pop stars. Throughout this intense journey into the heart of the K-pop industry, we have peeled back the flawless high-definition filters to reveal the exhausting, breathtaking reality of what it actually takes to survive inside the ultimate hype zone of global fame. These 7 members are not just perfectly choreographed mannequins designed for mass consumption. They are living, breathing, profoundly complex human beings who constantly fight invisible wars against suffocating corporate expectations, extreme cultural stigmas, and the terrifying weight of their own unparalleled success. When you scroll through the internet and click on a striking, carefully designed video thumbnail featuring their smiling faces, it is so incredibly easy to forget the blood, sweat, and intense psychological tears hiding just beneath that polished surface. But it is precisely these raw, unvarnished moments, the defiant body modifications, the brutal corporate roasts, the desperate need for platonic skinship, and the fierce rejection of parasocial delusions that truly
truly forge the unbreakable bond between the artists and their dedicated community. This is exactly why millions of fans flood the comment sections every single day, engaging in passionate debates, defending their humanity, and keeping the vibrant pulse of this fandom alive. It is a level of authentic engagement so powerful that even the highest, most official industry channels have no choice but to pay close attention and subscribe to the shifting narratives driven by the real fans. These 7 controversial habits force us to look in the mirror and challenge our own deeply ingrained prejudices about celebrity culture. Are we brave enough to let our idols grow, make mistakes, and boldly redefine themselves, or will we keep demanding they remain frozen in a safe, comfortable fantasy? As you step away from this deep dive and back into the endless stream of perfectly curated media, carry this burning question with you. Will you continue to blindly consume the sanitized corporate product, or are you finally ready to celebrate the messy, rebellious, and fiercely beautiful human truth that keeps this group at the absolute pinnacle of music history? The choice is entirely yours, but once you have seen the reality behind the curtain, you can never truly look at the glittering stage the same way ever again.